guys, welcome to part 2 of Muay Thai Save Me with our episode with Jen here. I'm with my business partner, Edwin Lopez. And of course, you already know Jen is across from us, but she's gonna go ahead and share the rest of her story that we didn't get to touch base into last week.
And can I just say, episode 1, I mean, we just couldn't stop. This remarkable woman who's our friend,
Absolutely.
our co-worker, and, you know, so valuable to us. I'm so glad we did a part 2.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You say you're a 4-time.
Mm-hmm.
When was, what year was it when you first found out that?
Oh, I don't remember. That was, let's see, in 2000, it's like 15, 16, about there.
Okay. And then and then I remember, like, it was 2018 when we all got together, and I remember there was another.
Yes.
Was that the second time?
Yes.
The second, because I remember you went through that, and I remember, like, for me, and I remember just being like, I cannot let her stay at home. You know what I mean? Because you always hear about, like, how when the mind convinces you and that it's over, like, everything else collapses, you know. And I'm not a doctor or anything like that, but I just knew, like, you had to keep staying active and everything, and that we needed you and everything. But how I remember you saying there was hard times where, like, when you would leave home and your children and all that, you know what I mean? Because you think about that, like, right? You start thinking about, like, where is this going to take me? And how hard was that? Like, spending time with us, your family and all that. And did your kids know about it?
I try not to tell them, but kids are smart and they hear a lot of things. It was really hard, especially I had this conversation with Jason where I told him, like, if I die, like, I need you to be that dad that, like, is involved with our daughter, like, you know, with the whole process of puberty and stuff like that. And it was hard conversations, especially I wouldn't actually have Jason as involved as I needed as other people, you know, like, if he was working, I would go to the doctors by myself. If he was, I was like, oh no, I'm fine, I'm good. And I would just go. I felt like shit, would throw up, and I was dizzy, and I was like, but I'm like, no, I'm good, because I didn't want them to see me that way. And I didn't want the kids being like, oh, what's wrong with mommy? And I started losing my hair, and we were at a restaurant, and Alice was like, I was just talking to Jason about it, and he's like, is it because of the cancer, mommy? And I just looked at her, and I was like, and I looked at Jason, I'm like, how do you know? Because we wouldn't really talk about it. We didn't say, like, hey, this is what I have, this is what could happen, because I didn't have that mentality. I wasn't gonna let myself leave them. And it's yeah.
So how did you deal with it in that moment? And how do you, like, how is it that, did you eventually talk to them about it? Like, how?
Yeah, when I actually had to get surgery, we did talk we actually talked to them about it. One of the biggest things is the small things that I remember. And one thing is with me is, like, I will run. Like, I'm just running, and I'll go, and I'm just like, I'll figure it out when it comes. Like, and I actually had a meeting with my doctors where they're like, okay, Jennifer, so you need to sign the will, you need to sign a power of attorney, and they're like, figure, like, these are the papers, write it out. No, and then they're like, please write as clear as possible. And I remember that because the doctor's making fun of my writing, and I was like, what do I put? Like, what do you put in a will? You can't, like, obviously everything goes to Jason and the kids, but it's like, what else do you want them to know after you die? Like, I don't know. Like, and it took me it was like I think that was the hardest paperwork I ever had to fill. And then I just got home, like, hey, yeah, everything's fine. But like I was saying, it's always the small things, because even I didn't let Jason be as involved with taking me to the doctor or picking me up or all of that. When I had my surgery, and it was funny because it was before COVID happened. It was in March. And I had that conversation with you. I'm like, hey, Edwin, I'm going to have surgery. Like, I'm going to have to be gone for 3 months. And then COVID happened. And Jason, I couldn't bend over. I just had the heating pad on me. I couldn't bend over. I couldn't like sit up. I couldn't do any of that. But I had to drink water. I couldn't eat. So this is the best thing. But Jason made me like the gallon. He literally made a whole straw for, like, I have a picture of it. It was like a whole straw, so I wouldn't be in pain drinking water. And that's why I'm like, even though I didn't let him be the supportive husband taking me to the doctors like that, he was the most supportive throughout everything. And he gave me that space that I needed. He wouldn't push like, come on, you're at the doctors, like you're working, you're this. He gave me that space where like, okay, whatever you need. And yeah, sometimes it is hard as a husband because he's like, you need a rest. But then I was like, I can't, like I need to move. And he saw that. And same thing with you. Like you guys were like, oh, you wouldn't ask me like, are you okay or anything? You just be like, you got this, Jen, let's go. And I'm like, okay, I'm going. But that really helped a lot because I wasn't in that mentality. And the speaker says it too. She's like, there's those days you want to play the cancer card. You're like, I have cancer, I don't want to get up. But it's like, you can't, you have to get up.
You got to keep fighting.
You have to keep fighting. And that's one thing, like, I feel like helps because, for example, your mom, like, when did she actually have a day off?
Yeah.
She didn't. She just kept doing the same routine. And that's one of the biggest advice, that sometimes it's going to be the hardest and you don't want to get up and you feel like shit and you're throwing up. There was sometimes that I would be in the bathroom just throwing up and nobody would know. And there was sometimes that you would see me that I would take the pill and I'm just throwing up. And, are you okay, Jen? Yeah, I'm good. I'm just a little dizzy. I'm fine. But I wouldn't play that. Like, I can't. Like, I got to go home. And I just kept going.
How did you handle, because in that times, we also knew that, and I can see where Jason was coming from. There was a conflict, right? There was some kind of resentment of you working and, you know, being with us all the time and you going through that at that time. Like, that's another pressure and unnecessary pressure that you really didn't have to take on at that time, right? You could have easily been like, hey guys, you know, I can't work for you guys, and we would have understood, you know. But you decided that you were going to take on not only everything you were going through, but also the conflict of your husband being worried, which within itself put strain on you. Like, what made you decide, you know what, I'm still gonna fight if that's another obstacle that I have to do? Because, you know, we you know, without you telling us, you know, just kind of like your kids, we knew there was issues at home because I would put myself in his shoes and be like, understand why somebody would be concerned, you know, especially if you're battling that. Like, how did you get over that, or how did you see that, or did you have conversations with him, or was it just like, what was that like also? Because that was another fight you had to do.
It was hard, especially because he, you know, he cares and he's like, you know, but we would have conversations, and then at the end of the day, I would tell him like, it's my choice. Let me do what I feel like I have to do. And it was hard sometimes, and it's like, well, this is for you, like you're not thinking about yourself. But at the same time, I was, because I knew in my mind that I'm meant for so much more. And being restrained from school, and back in the day in my mindset where I was, I didn't want to be there anymore. And I had that, like, I don't want to miss anything because we're still growing and we're like, had the ball rolling. And I was like, no, we got to, like, we're still growing. Like, I got to do this. And it was just a lot of conversations that we had. And yeah, sometimes it's still kind of there where it's like, you have to balance it out a little bit, but I don't know. It's just always communicating, and kind of like, I had questions about it too. Like, how do you do it? And I've asked like other people, and sometimes it's hard because you're like, you want to make something grow and you're just like, oh, like I'm so excited for it. And then, but your family's waiting at home and you're just like, I'm doing this for you guys. Like, watch, like we're going to be up there. Just wait for me. Like, we're doing this. And then just kind of learning throughout way, like when I'm home, being at home, and when I'm at work, being at work.
Because that's an incredible story, Jen. And maybe for other women out there that might be going through something similar, where did your resiliency come from? Where did that strength come from? Because you can't teach that. That comes from within. Where can you share with people that are listening right now? Where did that come from? Where did that toughness come? Where did that mental toughness come from? Because you can't teach that. That's heart. Like that's what you would say as a fighter. Like you have a heart. Where did that come from? Is that like, do you feel like that derived from childhood, like the way you were brought up, the experiences that you've gone through, the being jumped multiple times? Like, where did that resiliency, where did that toughness come from?
Childhood for sure. It was, I had to grow up fast. Yeah, I had to grow up really fast. And my mom's totally gonna hear this, but yeah, it's just my dad was a different man back in the day, and he would drink a lot, and he was a ladies' man, you would say. So it was a really tough time. And I resented my dad a lot. And I was at a point in time of my lowest where I would like even pray to God, like I was a kid. Like, I promise I'll clean my room, just please change things, like. And I guess like when I had to grow up instantly when my parents got divorced, and it was a tough divorce. My mom was emotionally not, she was just like, I had to grow up fast to help her emotionally. And I think I promised myself that I never wanted to be like that. And that was the biggest thing. It was just like, I saw how my mom was, and I was like, I'm never gonna be like that. And before I met Jason, I was like, oh, if a man, like, if he like says one little thing, his stuff is going outside. Like, F that, you know?
Jen Wick comes out.
Yeah, no, I'm like, you're not. But that's where it came from. But one thing that I did learn is when I had Alice, I forgave him because I wanted him to know my daughter, and all the bad that he did with me, but he didn't do that with her. So I let that go. But because of that, I'm the way I am, for sure.
Wow.
Because I saw a lot of things that I wasn't supposed to. I heard a lot of things I wasn't supposed to. So.
Wow.
And I wanted to ask you, Neil, a question, because you've known Jen a lot longer than I have. And I mean, we all love her and everything, but every time we've talked about everything, like it hurts you really bad, you know what I mean? How is it, you know what I mean, like trying, working with her, caring for her, we're a family and everything, to really, like, emotionally, like, for you to be, you know what I mean, working side by side, but also caring for this person, like, how have you been able to, and you learning yourself that transition of helping her being there, but also knowing, like, hey, you got to push and you got to be a better person, because her family, like the way we all do, you know what I mean? But I know it's been a huge impactful for you. And I've noticed that you also never really were like, just go, you know what I mean? Just go home. You never let off, you know what I mean? And you're very, like, I mean, I care for Jen, you know what I mean? And just as much as you know, but I know for you, like, every time we've had speeches or anything, it's been very difficult for you. But like,
you can say it. I cry.
Yeah,
you can say
you
it.
cry.
Yeah.
But
we're
like,
not
why?
Good with speeches
but why
together.
is it that you, no matter how much, because you're very emotional and like you're a person that's very like, you know what, like just go take rest, or like that. You never did that for her.
I looked at it as because I care for her so much, and then that I just saw the potential in her, and I knew that if I allow her to I baby her, it's gonna be just a mess. And I knew I can't baby her. And I kind of approached it like how I approach my fighters. There's times where I'm like, yeah, take a day off. For the most part, we're gonna modify things, we're gonna keep working through it. And that's the mentality and the approach I took with Jen, is because I care for her and I know she's got this. So I'm like, let's go, because I, just like her, I have the mindset I understand the importance of the mindset and how you got to be positive. And if the one who's with her majority of the day at the gym is kind of doubting her results or doubting the way this health is going to go, it's just going to diminish her confidence. And why would I do that to her? So if I stayed strong, I knew she would stay strong. If I was in her corner rooting her on, then I knew she would keep rooting for herself and keep running too. So I just approach it like how I would with a fighter.
Yeah, that's good, because I know that it's you guys been close for a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've always cared for you, but I was like, I couldn't allow you to be weak. And even though I knew the circumstances were very, very strong and everything, I was just like, if that mind takes over her, like you just hear it from everybody. You know, you hear people that hear a result of something and in 4 or 5 weeks they're done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you've been very blessed. You know what I mean? But on top of that, Jen, you also went through another hurdle, and I think we were in Vegas with Kim when you got a stroke. And I remember, I think it was Jason or somebody who called us, and I specifically remember we were like going through Excalibur or something. We're walking, and I got the call, and I think it was Jason who called us, right, Kim? And you went through a stroke as well. You've gone through all this. In a couple of years, you go through a stroke, and you don't have. Can you talk about a little bit like what impact it did to your body, mind, and spirit, and all that as well, and how you got through it? Because you're still here, John Wicking and kicking.
So that's the situation itself was pretty funny, because we were actually going to Big Bear as a team, and I was with Kru, and then I was showing him like shoes or something for Big Bear, and I was like, Kru, it's kind of weird how they only put like half of his face in the picture. And then he's like, what? And I was like, I showed him, I was like, I don't know, like it's like half of his face. But it was weird because I could only see the right side of the picture, like just, and then I would look up and I'm like looking at him and I was like, oh my God, like I could see only half. Literally, like it was just black. And I was like tripping out because I was like looking at the picture and I was like, oh, that's weird. And I look at Kru, and then they started just getting black. And then I was like, something's off. And the first thing I do is call my eye doctor. So I was like, oh, like something wrong with my eyes.
You have an eye doctor?
Yes, I have an eye doctor.
I just didn't.
Yeah, I used to wear glasses. But, and then I called, I was like, hey, so I'm like losing my vision. I can only see half. And she was like, what do you mean? I'm like I see completely black on one side on both eyes. So if I covered one eye, it was the same, and I covered the left, it was the same. And she's like, you should probably go to the emergency room. No. And I was like, nah. So I call Kaiser, and I was like waiting to see like maybe I just need to go to urgent care. And they told me, well, what are you feeling? I was like, no, I feel fine. I just see black, like half black. And they're like, you need to come to urgent care because we don't know what it is. So I was like, okay. So I called my mom, told Kru like, hey, I'm going to go because this is kind of weird. And I just, my mom dropped me off. Like, you don't have to stay. And then as soon as I was waiting there and the doctor was coming, I started feeling my left side just kind of go numb. And I was like, why can't I lift up my arm that much? But I was fine. Like I was talking, and then the doctor came in and he was like, what's going on? I was like, well, first it started where I can only see black, but now I feel like my left side is numb. And then my face started feeling numb, and he's like, so he started kind of poking me. He said, what are you feeling? I was like, I feel fine. I just feel numb. Like he tried telling me to lift, and he stood me up, and I like stumbled. And he's like, oh, we need to transfer you to the emergency room. So they transferred me to the emergency room, and then they had me in I forgot, it's not code blue, it's another code. But basically all the nurses were there, and they were checking everything. And then little by little, I just started kind of feeling like weird. Like I started feeling off. And then I kind of was confused, and I was like, something's off. Like I don't feel good. I felt sick, and then just my left side was just numb. I couldn't pick it up. I was just kind of like there. And then doctors couldn't figure out what was going on, what happened. And they're like, oh, you had it was like a minor something, I forgot what they call it, minor stroke. So, but first they thought it was a really bad migraine. So then they ran the test, they put that stuff so you can see all the veins and stuff. And they're like, okay, we see what is going on. And then I was just there. But the worst part is that I was doing the physical therapy and my arm started feeling like I was getting little strength little by little. And I was getting confused. And this is a weird part because I never thought I was physically getting confused, but I really was. And I didn't, like, mentally, like, I was foggy. I had brain fog for sure, but I didn't think it was that. I was just, oh, I'm tired. So I thought it was just affecting my body, but it kept, my arm was better, face was better, but just my leg was just not, it wouldn't comprehend what my mind wanted to do. So I had the cane for a bit. I was going to work with the cane. And then little by little, I got with knee brace. But I didn't know it was bigger than that. And it was actually mental until it kind of started affecting my work. And then Edwin had like a conversation with me. He's like, Jen, like, you're not like this. Like, something's like, you're just never behind like this. And I was like, no, I'm fine. Like, no, I'm good. And then one time I had a conversation with Kim, and I'm like, I really think that my mind has been affected because I would forget things. And it was just like a weird brain fog. Like, I was there, but I wasn't really there. And then when I started realizing about my brain being affected, then I started taking the necessary steps to start making, like, playing little games and things like that the doctor told me that will help me get back. Because they would ask me, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. But it just really sucked because I was with the knee brace and a cane for about, what, like a year? 2 years, actually.
2 years. Wow.
And it would be funny because I'm with the cane and people would be like, oh, what's wrong with you at the gym? I'm like, I wish I could tell you a cool story, like I got really kicked or something, but it's just my body was just fighting with me.
Yeah.
That's I think you have your average person you have 20 reasons why they should have stopped everything that you continue to do and continue to do still now. And I've always admired that about you. You know what I mean? I've always thought, like, you have God's gift to be an example. And I think, I promise you, there's somebody that's going to be watching this and be like, what am I complaining about? You know what I mean? I think we have people that complain about different things and they're just like, why they don't do what they got to do, whether it's working out, chasing their dreams, being a better friend, a better, parent or whatever it might be. And I can't even comprehend how I would take on these tasks, these hurdles that you've gone through, just because I get a cold and I'm like dying, you know what I mean? And Kim knows it, like I'm on my deathbed. And here you are going through all this, one after the other, and you've always shown up to work. You always have backed us up. You've always been a go-getter. You've always been an inspiration, not only to myself, but to your teammates, to our staff, to our members, to your children, to your husband, to your family. Even when you don't think that they had your back, whoever it might be, deep down inside, you can't fucking hide that shit. You can't hide those kind of illnesses and be like, and still show up and do what you gotta do. And everything from how proud we've been of you going on stage and speaking and the things you've been afraid to do. That's why when you do those things and you're afraid, I'm like, dude, you've gone through all this fucking shit that ain't nothing. Like, you gotta take on this world because you have a duty to show what a real superwoman is about. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that become great, but you became great over so much adversity. And I think you have a duty of a gift from God that you need to share this with the world, because everything you've gone through at one day, it's going to be through a book, it's going to be through more podcasts, it's going to be through a TV show, it's going to be through whatever, or you're going to save people's lives and you're not even going to know it. You're not even going to know this podcast who saves people's lives, who are like probably at home and saying, I give up, and then seeing this and saying, why the fuck am I complaining? Does that make sense? So I want you to know that I don't think anybody here will ever fucking be like, doubt that, dude. You know what I mean? And no matter what conflicts we've all had, it's all been because we can't stop. and we have something to prove to ourselves of individuals who came from the hood and all that and all these obstacles and continue to push, you know?
Absolutely. Like that, and that's why we started this podcast, is because everyone's story is amazing. Yours is a really amazing, capital A in calligraphy, girl.
Yeah.
It's just, if it touches one person, this was so worth it. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, and I want to let off with this. Like, what are your plans now? Like, where do you? I mean, you've grown a lot. I mean, I'm sure there's still battles that you're going through. But where do you see yourself with MTK, with yourself, as a leader, as an inspiration? I think you know that already about yourself. I think you've honed in on that. I think before you were a little doubtful, you were a little shy, a little insecure. But I think now you've realized that. I know just recently you became a Christian, got baptized and all that, and leading a different path and just being a great example. But where do you see yourself now? And what would you like to contribute to the world at this point moving forward? And who do you want to be, you know?
I think every day is my biggest question, because like I said, that with having that survivor's remorse, it pushes me, like I said, like I don't really like talking about my story because it's not about me. I feel like I want to help other people, and I'm always growing every day, and I feel like I haven't fulfilled that yet, where I want to help. Like, I just love helping people. And I do hope, like, having this podcast with you guys, like, it shows people that mindset switch can help you a lot. And I just want to be in a place where I could help more than just 10 people. I want to reach more than that, because it could save so many more people. With the system that we have, in a way where people are just like letting the doctors tell them, hey, you're fine. Mm-hmm. And then it's too late. You're not. And I don't know.
I think it just goes back to, you can just help educate people. And again, it goes back to them hearing your story here on the podcast, and they hear like, oh, wait, don't just listen to my doctor. Mm-hmm. If you feel something's off, get checked out, keep being thorough, go to a different doctor. Like how you said you went to several doctors because you knew something was off. Mm-hmm. And I love that. Like you might not feel it, that you're not capable, or I wouldn't say capable, you're not ready to share that story, but trust me, your story is going to be so inspirational. You have no idea who's listening right now how impacted they are going to be from that. Yeah. Maybe they don't even deal with any type of cancerous issue, but just hearing that story, they're going to look back and reflect at themselves and say, what am I complaining about? Jen Wick went through all that? Hell no. Like, you're going to inspire a lot of people, you know, and it's just a matter of just your story. Like, how many people we've heard listening to other podcast episodes said, oh man, that person's story just really inspired me. Mm-hmm. You know, you're going to do the same.
Yeah.
I guarantee it.
But where I see myself with MTK is just growing so much more that we can impact more people's lives. Because every time we have a sit down with someone, every time that, you know, someone joins the gym, we're changing their lives in a huge way. And I love that. And I just want to expand on that way more. Yeah.
We have a great opportunity because Muay Thai brings so much value to people's lives. They don't have to be a fighter. Mm-hmm. It gives you the resiliency. It gives you the mental toughness to handle what life is going to throw at us. You know what I mean? And you're right. We do it. We have something very special here. And yeah, I love my team. I love that we definitely got something special. So we can definitely do that for sure.
I agree. Before we let you go, Jen, I want to do something a little bit different, because I think your story is definitely something that's just been inspirational for me in every aspect. And I'm not a quitter, you know me, but you just give me that. One thing that's great about these podcasts, they're going to live on forever after we die, all of us. In the next 12, 15 years, your daughter and your son are going to be most likely watching this, and you'll be watching them, what message would you have for them? Because we'll all go through our hard times. What would you say to them in right now when they're in their 20s and they're looking back at this, or your family or people that maybe at this time they don't understand, because you sacrifice a lot of things where you're not there. I'm not there a lot of the times for my kids. And then we'll close off with that, because this is going to be forever.
For sure. It's just, the message is, don't let anything push you down. Don't let anyone push you down. Just get up and go. Like, it's the biggest thing. Because if you have, I'm going to use this example, actually, it's perfect. So Alice was talking to Franco and Aiden about her plans, and she has an idea book. And she said, oh, I'm going to, like, she was like having like her own little business plan. And Franco and Aiden were just kind of like bashing on her. And they were like, well, what if you don't get that by this time? Well, what if you don't do this? And what if you don't do that? And she's like, well, then I'm going to do another thing and I'm going to do this. And this is what I told her. It doesn't matter what anybody tells you, because they don't see what you see. It doesn't matter if you fall, it's how you get back up and you keep going. And just don't victimize yourself. It's I give just 1 minute of that. Oh man, like, what am I going to do? Figure out your surroundings, figure out the problem, and what is your solution. Because if you're so worried about the problem, the problem is just going to sink you in. You're never going to find that solution. And that's the big thing. If you never look forward and say, well, what happens if I do get up and try it again? And that every entrepreneur has done it. Every person, that's the biggest thing they say. When you fail, get your ass up and do it again. But learn from your mistakes.
Okay. Well, Jen, thank you so much. We appreciate it. I know this was, my hands are just like clammy and sweaty, because I know we see each other every day, but we learn from each other, dude. You have Kim over there crying. Like, she's been crying the whole time on your story.
I've been holding it in.
And, she's been crying the whole time. And it's like, share your story. Because you got people like this. You got this guy, every time he talks about you, like, you have to share your story. You don't understand. Your story is what saves lives. So we thank you for that. Jen, do you have any advice for anybody that's been listening to this that do you think that could help them out in anything?
Yes. My biggest advice is, if you know anyone that's going through cancer, had cancer, or anything like that, don't tell them like, I'm so sorry, or you're so strong. Even though it's amazing sometimes when you hear, oh, you're so strong and things like that. At the moment, we don't feel strong. Just like, hey, Jen, keep going, or whoever, hey, keep going, you're doing awesome. Or buy coffee for them. Like, little things is amazing, because that's actually one of the things that I never wanted to share my story, because I didn't want that, like, oh, I'm so sorry, Jen.
You didn't want
like,
sympathy or
sympathy.
anything. Yeah.
It was just like, oh, you got this. Like, oh, all right, good. You look great today. Yeah. That is a great advice. Like, that is the best, because, sometimes you look all pale. I don't know if you guys remember. I look all like.
I do.
Yeah. Thanks, okay. No problem. But it's when you just say those little things, or like buy a coffee for them or something like that to make them feel good. But don't do the whole sympathy thing. It doesn't feel nice, especially if people keep going. It starts feeling a little negative.
Jen, I want to talk real quick. I know that you just mentioned about, after going through, your breast cancer and all that, and then having the stroke, but now you're out here, you're hitting pads, you're training, kicking the bag, you're stronger than ever. Like, that within itself is amazing. Can you tell us, like, I know that you said it took you about 2 years, but like, what made you to that point? Because I think that it just literally was a transformation where you just said, fuck this, I'm done with this brace, I'm done with this cane, I'm done with holding on to things. And now you're just taking this massive action and getting back into shape and getting back into the things that you love, aside from working at the gym, but also training at the gym. You mind sharing that? Because I think that would be a huge inspiration for some people out there that make excuses,
I just got angry. I was tired of it. I was tired of being in that position where I couldn't, even like being able to train and the modifications are amazing and everything. It's just that muscle memory where you just want to do it. And there was a point where like I wanted to, and then my leg would give out. And I got fed up. I was angry, and that I was like, fuck this. Like I'm done. And I would walk around the house without it, and I would feel it kind of a little bit, but I was just like, I can't fucking have this shit anymore. And that anger and frustration pushed me even more. And I remember there was a time where you're like, come on, Jen, just take that shit off. It's not real. And even one time, like I was standing in the MMA fence, and Martin did like this weird thing on my knee where he kind of was like, I forgot what, like you kind of put.
Buckle it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I just went down. And he's like, oh my God, like and I didn't want to do that. Like I didn't want to have that feeling anymore. Yeah. I guess like not, I don't know how to kind of say it in the right way, but I just kind of felt like fed up, and I felt a little useless because I was just like, how the
It goes back.
Yeah.
I've said it in another episode too. Any massive change to anyone, they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's what you literally were. You were just so fed up. Like, I'm F this, no more.
Yeah.
You know, and that you got to that point, you're like, enough's enough.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where the change happens.
Mm-hmm. Even though I didn't like let it restrict me, because we were in the snow I wasn't freaking cane digging myself, pulling myself up, but I just didn't want to have that restriction, or people kind of look at me, well, what happened? You know, like, I'm just like, it's hard to explain, but.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who has that brace in life, which could be many things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your knee, your elbow, work, anything that's making them hesitate, that's making them like, do they just got to be sick and tired of it until they make a move? Because
yeah, it's just not being comfortable. Like you have, like if it happens, you already have to think about yourself already being without it. Because if you, like the doctors would say, oh, you have to go to physical therapy all the time. And sometimes I would miss it because I was working. And then I had one time come to work. But then I was just like, this isn't, I feel so like, because I was doing other things and I'm not just like lifting the leg. And it was the hardest leg lifts I would ever do. But it was just so frustrating that I wasn't okay with me being in that moment. And that's what it has to be. You can't be okay with the situation you have.
Do you think now, looking back, you prolonged it longer than it should have?
I think so.
Do you look at it now and say, if I see these obstacles, that I'm prolonging and take more action quicker?
Yeah. Because if I took it more, if I would have gotten, like I was frustrated already with the cane. So then I got rid of that. And then my next step was the brace. But I think my mind was like, oh, you already got away from the thing. You just have to put this brace on. You're fine. And it was comfortable for a little bit. But then I couldn't do squats. I couldn't do like the kicks. And it would frustrate me. When I actually started training again, it would frustrate me. And when I started sparring again like that, it's still there a little bit where I forget I can kick now. But it's just like, I just don't want to let myself get comfortable like that again.
All right, guys. Well, that concludes episode 2 for Jen's story, guys. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Muay Thai Save Me. As you already know, our podcast is here to bring on guests that Muay Thai has impacted their life in some form of way, just as it has impacted all our lives. So don't forget, guys, if you enjoyed this video or any other content, please make sure you subscribe, like, and share, and stay tuned for next week's episode. You don't want to miss it.